I assume you would like to wait for Chuck.
Let's wait a couple of minutes, and I know that others are going to mosey on in slowly over the next couple of minutes.
Of course. Um, I know that most of the DOT people already do this, but if you are representing the DOT, just put a DOT next to your name, so that I know to be able to unmute you whenever you're making your presentation. Most of you guys have already done it, so I assume you're all super savvy at this point. While we wait for Chuck, I see him starting to join. I'm going to go ahead and give the rules of the road for everybody who maybe hasn't attended one of our virtual meetings or maybe just hasn't attended one in a very long time. So first, you'll notice that you are currently muted and you're unable to unmute yourself. The only people who will be unmuted at any given time will be our co-chairs, Chuck and Craig, and our presenters as we move through the agenda. Following the presentations and as we go through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon on the bottom of your device or somewhere on your device, look for it, look for the reactions icon and find the raise hand button under that menu. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you are calling in from your phone, it is *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute whenever you're called on. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you. If you're having problems, the chat is available for technical support. It is only for technical support to help with Zoom software problems. It's not to ask questions or make comments to the co-chairs or the presenters. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll need to go to the participant section where you might find the raise hand feature there. Finally, we encourage you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen, as we may miss you. There's a lot of people in the room. So if you're having problems, chat me. I'm here for support. And with that, Chuck, Craig, you guys can get going.
Okay, thank you. Well, appreciate it. My name is Chuck Warren. I'd like to welcome you to the April meeting of the Transportation Committee of Community Board 8. And my co-chair is Craig Lader, who's also here. And I think we'd like to start with the presentation by the New York City Department of Transportation on the Queensboro Bridge South Outer roadway conversion. And we have the folks from DOT here.
We do. We have a lot of folks from DOT here.
Oh,
So.
I've seen them. So who wants to lead off? Dan Wagner, you want to lead off?
Hey, hi everyone. It's Colleen Chattergoon from DOT. So my colleagues Dan and Carissa and I are here tonight to join you to give a presentation on the Queensboro South Outer Roadway Safety Improvement. So Carissa is going to lead the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Colleen. Okay, let me pull it up real quick. All right, here it is. All right, so as Colleen mentioned, I'm Carissa Lidstrand. I'm going to be going through the street improvements that will coincide with the South Outer Roadway opening to pedestrians. And so just a little background, I'm from the Public Realm team, which is part of the Office of Livable Streets at New York City DOT. And the proposals that you'll see today kind of coincide with our team's overall goals and objectives, some of which include creating premier public spaces, thinking about comprehensive planning, as well as dynamic curbs and corridor strategies. And so going into a little bit of background about the project, I think a lot of you know that during the de Blasio administration, it was announced that the South Outer Roadway would close to vehicles and open to pedestrians, and that would be something that New York City DOT would take on. And when that was announced, DOT was already undergoing construction on the upper deck of the Queensboro Bridge, and that work has continued through today and has been one of the things we've been waiting on to open the South Outer Roadway to pedestrians. And so the street improvement projects, I just want to mention that, these are at the street level. And so we do have some goals and objectives that we're thinking about with these proposals. And so one of that is creating a pedestrian network that is accessible, safe, and convenient. While we're not relocating where bikes will access the bridge, there will still be the access point along the north outer roadway. We do want to be thinking about the existing bike network and any enhancements that can be made. And then we also want to maintain local vehicle access to businesses, residents, and any city facilities along these blocks. And so really why we're here today is the north outer roadway of the Queensboro Bridge is over capacity. It's the only New York City DOT East River Bridge that has a shared use path between bikes and pedestrians for the full span of the bridge. And the Queensboro Bridge has the second highest bike volumes of those New York City DOT East River bridges at about 7,000 bikes per day. We also have about 2,800 pedestrians that are walking over the bridge daily. And this number might be higher if the conditions were better. And so the south outer roadway, as you can see in the right-hand image, it's one travel lane that takes vehicles, primarily passenger vehicles, because there is a height restriction from Manhattan to Queens. Currently, the south outer roadway has been closed overnight while the upper deck repairs have been going on. And then thinking about the vehicle volumes that use the south outer roadway, those numbers are actually around the same amount that is the combined total of the bikes and pedestrians that are using the north outer roadway daily. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the existing conditions. So I'm going to start with the pedestrian access points. So kind of orienting you to this plan view, we have 59th Street kind of in the middle here. And then on the right-hand side, we have First Avenue, and then on the left, we have Second Avenue. And so we are relocating the entrance for pedestrians from East 60th Street, which is how you get on the north outer roadway, to the south outer roadway here on East 59th Street. And so we want to be thinking about the street improvements that we can make with this new destination. And in the visual, you can also see that there is a sidewalk with a existing ramp that kind of goes up to the south outer roadway currently. And so going into a little bit more detail of the pedestrian environment on 59th Street. So we do have a continuous sidewalk along the south side of 59th Street between First Avenue and Second Avenue. But on the north side, we only have a sidewalk between First Avenue and the south outer roadway. This creates a condition where pedestrians are forced to cross mid-block if they were visiting Honey Locust Park. And you can see on the top left, people are crossing there, even with the south outer roadway traffic that's currently in use. And then looking at kind of both the south and north sidewalks, we do have varying widths depending on kind of the elements that are in the furnishing zone, such as trees. And then there are also different permanent objects along the building line, like stairs, that might reduce the width of the sidewalk. And then another thing to note is that because we only have one continuous sidewalk along this block, we only have one crosswalk across Second Avenue, which kind of funnels pedestrians to this point and creates a very busy intersection. And so transitioning to the existing conditions for bikes, again, we're not relocating where bikes will access the bridge, but we do want to be thinking about the overall network. And so kind of looking at 59th Street, there is a high number of bikes that use 59th Street to connect to Second Avenue southbound. And so as bikes are making this movement, the first section of 59th Street, you have a shared lane between bikes and vehicles. And then on the western side, we have a buffered bike lane, as you can see in the top photo. And then again, the intersection at Second Avenue, this is kind of a busy intersection for everyone because we do have that high volume of bikes that are turning there as well. And then looking at the existing conditions for vehicles, one thing I want to point out is that There is a left turn bay for the vehicles that are currently accessing the South Outer Roadway. We also have 3 DOT facilities that are along the northern side of 59th Street. And then we have 2 parking garages that are along the southern section. And then taking a look at the existing curb regulations, they really vary in this area. Some of the curb regulations allow for quick pickup drop-off or loading and unloading if you're in kind of the no parking area. We also have some truck loading over on First Avenue. We did conduct a merchant survey where we talked to the businesses along 59th Street, and generally all of them said that the current curb regulations are meeting their needs. All right, so let's transition into the proposal. And before doing that, I do want to talk a little bit about DOT's in-house toolkit. So there's a lot of different tools that we can use to improve kind of the street environment, and some that I want to point out that are related to our proposal are, different traffic regulation signs, such as like a do not enter sign or local access only type signage. We also can use a lot of different materials on our streets to delineate spaces for different modes. I think one that everyone is very familiar with is like the green bike lanes, but we also have the ability to kind of delineate pedestrian space, kind of this beige color on the bottom right. And then we also are using another one that's a little more kind of orange in color for shared space, which kind of tells vehicles that, like, yes, you can be here, but you have to drive slowly, but you might also be interacting with bikes or pedestrians in that environment. And that's also correlates with like some signage changes as well. So let's jump into the proposal. So one thing I want to start with is the proposed elements that benefit pedestrians. So as I was mentioning before, there's no continuous sidewalk along the northern section of 59th Street. So we want to install a painted sidewalk that connects between 1st and 2nd Avenue along the northern section. So you can see that kind of in this beigeish color. And then we are also wanting to study adding a mid-block crossing for pedestrians that are going to be entering and exiting the bridge, since the access point will be this gray ramp leading up to the South Outer Roadway. And then our bridges team will also be installing 2 gates, one up here and then one kind of further down. And these will, kind of prevent vehicles from using the South Outer Roadway when it's closed, but also will facilitate maintenance, access to the bridge, as well as to the DOT facility that is up here. And then a few other things that we're looking at doing are adding a crosswalk at 2nd Avenue to connect to the new painted sidewalk. And then also adding some traffic calming, since this will be primarily an eastbound route for vehicles. And so we want to kind of calm the speeds as we're coming into 59th Street by adding things like a small concrete triangle, and then also adding a mid-block painted extension partway through. And then kind of thinking about this in the context of bike improvements and vehicle improvements, because there will not be any vehicles going to the South Outer Roadway, we can remove that left turn bay that we saw in the existing conditions and expand the existing bike lane that's on First Avenue, and then extend the truck loading parking that's on First Avenue as well. And then we are wanting to keep a section of 59th Street as 2-way, but have that be more like local access for DOT, as well as the facilities along the southern curb. And then after the parking garage, kind of about here, is where it would transition to that shared space color that I was talking about before. This is really only going to be a space that's shared between authorized vehicles, like DOT vehicles, and bikes that are traveling this direction. And then we would keep the buffered bike lane but add some components for protection and delineation between the travel lane and the bike lane. And then transitioning to kind of what the curb regulations might be adjusted to. So really we're just adjusting the location of them. Before there was no standing, but it was in a different spot. And so these do still facilitate kind of the quick pickup drop off, as well as some loading and unloading in the no parking area, and then extended truck loading on First Avenue. And then kind of zooming out and thinking about the overall vehicle network with the South Outer Roadway closed to vehicles. There are other access points to get from Manhattan to Queens. So we have the lower roadway and the upper roadway. And we are kind of looking at the lane configurations of both of these roadways with the revised volume from the South Outer Roadway being closed. And then looking at the timeline for all of this. So really this work is dependent on when the South Outer Roadway is going to be opening to pedestrians, and that's anticipated for late summer of this year. But we are hoping to do some of this work before that happens. And then there is some work that will have to wait until after vehicles are no longer able to access the South Outer Roadway. And this timeline shows kind of both the Manhattan and the Queens components, because we see this as all one project. So you will see both in here. And that's it. That's our proposal.
Okay. Do we have any people from the public who would like to speak on this proposal to start with?
Yeah, I'll remind everybody that if you would like to ask a question, make a comment, to raise your virtual hand by going to the reactions icon and finding the button that says raise hand. So we have 2 members of the public with their hands up so far, Dylan Geronimo Kennedy and then Maggie Lehman.
Okay, let's have Dylan Geronimo Kennedy first, and we'll unmute him. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dylan, you're unmuted right now. If you're trying to say anything, we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Now you can.
Oh, perfect. Sorry about that. I just first wanted to thank DOT for this presentation. This is the part of the Upper East Side I find kind of the most hectic and harrowing, both as a pedestrian and a cyclist. I like a lot of the proposed changes, and I think that they will help make the area a little less stressful. I encourage in future pushes to go even farther, because I still think that this area is going to be pretty intense and hectic, and there's just so much going on. But I love the expanded sidewalks, and I love the expanded bike lanes. My only kind of immediate suggestion would be, instead of applying paint and flex posts, making kind of more permanent structures. I understand there are budgetary limitations there and concrete limitations, but that's my biggest bit of feedback. But I don't want that to distract from the fact that I really like this proposal. I'm really thankful that these changes are coming, because this is the kind of biggest pain point when traveling around the Upper East Side. So I really appreciate the focus there. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Maggie Lehman is next. Can we unmute Maggie? Go ahead, Maggie.
Hi. Thanks for hearing me speak. I'm assuming I'm coming through?
Yes.
Great. I also would like to thank you for the presentation and for the detail. My question really concerns, since you identified yourself as part of the area of the Department of Transportation, whose goals and objectives are to create livable streets, your description, and given the 2 terrible crashes of hitting pedestrians in the last 2 days, I just would like to know, both from you, Craig and Charles and from the DOT, whether this would be the appropriate time, or in item number 3 on the agenda, where it looks like the Department of Transportation reps will still be at the meeting, whether you would address the terrible cascading of crashes by vehicles and bikes hitting pedestrians. So I just wanted to grab you while the DOT was still here, so that you didn't sort of leave the meeting and I wouldn't be able to raise this question, given you're part of the Livable Streets area of DOT. So whether you'd want to address that now, or Craig and Charles, whether you think it should be item number 3 in the agenda, I'll leave up to you guys.
No, it shouldn't be addressed now because we have people who want to speak on this, and we should follow the agenda here. And so thanks, Matt. We'll try to get it addressed, in item 3. Okay.
You have Hindi Schachter up next.
Schachter, right. I see him. Unmute Hindi.
Yeah, Hindi, you muted yourself back, so do it one more time. There you
Am
go.
I
Yep,
great?
you're great.
So first of all, I want to thank the Department of Transportation for giving its attention to this project. I want to thank it for a project that will absolutely make for safer streets. Right now, the bridge is probably the least safe part of cycling on the Upper East Side. So anything that can be done is commendable. So first I start with thanks, but I go quickly from thanks to saying that it's been a long time. We were promised that we would have this roadway, the demarcation, and it's taken a long time. So my big ask would be, do it well, but also realize that every day that you delay is a day when we may have a fatality. So here is one of those projects where speed is important. Whether it comes in May or August is important. And I would urge you to make it a priority to get this finished as quickly as possible. So I hope you'll take that into account, and I thank you for all the good that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hindi. Why don't we go to the board now? And I see Paul Crickler on deck. Paul, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, DOT. I'm hugely in favor of this. I ride across that bridge multiple times a week. It's terrifying. Frankly, the space won't be enough, even if we have just one side for bikes and one for pedestrians. It's very, very crowded there, and there will be induced demand as well. So we should look for further space from the roadway. I have one question for you on that. Carissa, one of your slides said that the number of people, pedestrians and people riding bikes, was greater on the North roadway than the number of cars. What is the total? I know you gave one of those numbers separately. What's the total number of pedestrians, bikes versus cars, please?
Right. So we have from the 2023 bike count, this is an average. So it's actually higher in the summer. So the daily bike count is this 7,185 number. And then we take annual pedestrian counts, and it's about 2,800 people that walk over the bridge daily. And then the vehicle count is about 8,000 for the South Outer roadway.
Just the
Yeah,
South.
yeah.
Thank you very much, and thanks for doing this. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. Judy Schneider, I believe, is next.
Yes, thank you. I thought it was an excellent presentation. Now, I just want to make sure the photograph that we're looking at right now, the drawing, that's 59th Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I was going to call Colleen and ask her, because I go to Honey Locust Park and I find myself crossing in the middle of the street. and ask her if DOT was looking into doing anything about pedestrian crossing there, because I don't want to walk all the way back to First Avenue, cross the street, and then go all the way up to Second Avenue. So I hope you will figure out something there. Now, I just want to make sure I understood. After the orange, the green is for the bicycles, and the light beige or whatever color that is, that's going to be yes, that's going to be a sidewalk you're installing there?
Yes. So actually, let me go back to this toolkit photo, which might show it a little better. So this is that beige color, and then this is a bike lane, although this one I think is two-way, whereas ours will be one-way. But it'll look something like this in that section. And then, as you were noting, like the orange section is similar to this like shared roadway.
Yes. That's not my question, though. Can you go back to that? Right. After you, where the light beige, I'll call it, there's a little island, there's a little triangular island there, which shows you have a lot of trees. There are only
Yes.
2 trees in there. There were 3. I think there are only 2 at the moment. Are you planning on doing anything with that? And then the rest of the area where you're making a sidewalk to go up to Second Avenue is all fenced off with a green fence that is absolutely filled with graffiti. It's just awful. The fence is covered with some kind of, it looks like a grassy fabric. I don't know what it's covered with, but it's covered with graffiti on top of that. Are there any plans to clean that area up? It looks, that part of the street looks awful.
Right, so I can address your first question about the triangle space. So the beige material will kind of go up to that triangle space. Unfortunately, we couldn't build this out in concrete. We do have to wait for a capital project, but we are working on that. And so the second question about the fencing. So this is the fencing for one of the 3 DOT facilities on the north side, where we store a lot of materials and larger vehicles. We can bring up your request of kind of looking at the fencing and the graffiti and the materials of it and see if we could maybe adjust that to make it look a little nicer. So we can bring that up with our bridges team.
Okay. I was talking to DEP on a different matter, and we started talking about bridge and what you're presenting to us tonight. And they said, well, we gave money years ago, 15, 20 years ago it was. They were, before they started the 3rd water tunnel at the corner of First Avenue and 59th. And that was to fix the island. They gave $245,000, I think. I think it went to the Parks Department. Nothing ever happened with that money. That money kind of disappeared. So maybe we should look back into that and find out, because they were planning to put nice fencing and maybe some planting in that area, which is not an exorbitant cost to do that, so that it would just look nicer, since we've got honey locust looking so nice now. So maybe you could take that back.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something I'm not familiar with, but I can check in on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Now Rita Popper, I believe, is next. So Rita, Rita.
I thank you for this presentation. It was absolutely fantastic. I have one question. How long is it going to take to get this presentation completed on the ground?
All right, let me go to the timeline. So we're anticipating that the South Outer Roadway can open to pedestrians late this summer. And so we're wanting to do a few improvements on the Manhattan side before that, and then a few kind of after. And you know, the timeline is looking at both the Manhattan and the Queens side of the bridge. And we're anticipating, you know, doing some construction after the South Outer Roadway opens to pedestrians for several months. So hopefully everything will be complete by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Good luck.
Hello, everyone. This is Craig. I want to thank everyone for the presentation as well. I think this has been a long time coming, and we are all clearly very enthusiastic and excited that this is going to come to fruition. Just one question I had actually. If you can go back to the proposed mid-block crosswalk over there. Unless I missed it, did you speak to how it would be controlled in terms of any signal or stop sign and such?
No, so there's like a little asterisk for pending further study, but we're currently looking into what the control will be. We're hoping that we can get a stop control there. If not, we can add, are you familiar with our enhanced crossing program?
I am, but for the benefit of others, you probably want to.
Okay, so you still get it's the crosswalk, and then New York state law is now stop for peds. And so we have signage that basically says stop for pedestrians, but it's not a stop sign. It has like a mini stop sign in it. So at the very least, we can do that here. But we are hoping that this can be a always stop.
Yeah, and I would just suggest that if you can't get the always stop, that you have that you have a, I'm blanking on what it's called, but the signal that could be triggered where you could actually have lights in the crosswalk or flashing lights to alert people that there's a pedestrian actually crossing. And also just want to make sure that it is an accessible crosswalk as well, because there are likely going to be people who are going to be needing that, and perhaps whether you have audible pedestrian signals as well. I just want to make sure that that's included in the discussion.
Great, thank you for those comments.
I think Paul wanted to say something. Why don't we unmute Paul quickly again?
Thanks, Chuck. Just one question I forgot to ask, Carissa. The northern outer roadway, are you intending also to change what's on the surface there for bikes going this way to Manhattan, this way to Queens, so that people don't know which white side to ride on?
For the north outer roadway, we will be adjusting, you know, some of the markings that are on the path, and then also adding things like no pedestrian signage.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Perfect.
Yeah, I think I'll second what Craig said. We'd like to thank the folks for the presentation, folks from DOT for the presentation, and I guess what trying to get things done as soon as you can would be helpful, and we appreciate you coming tonight. Okay. The second item is a revocable consent application to construct, maintain, and use a fenced-in area.
Wait, sorry, before the DOT leaves, do they need a resolution for anything, or is this okay, just a presentation?
I already passed something before.
Okay, great, cool.
We would love to have a resolution from the board.
What?
If it's helpful, we can do it. We have a resolution dating back to 2020 in which we asked for a study for this to be performed. So,
okay.
But if you prefer an updated one, we certainly can.
It would be great to have an updated one. Thank you.
Okay. Rita, I'll recognize Rita. Let's go ahead, Rita.
Rita, just go ahead and unmute.
Unmute.
Yeah.
Make a motion to accept as presented, to approve the presentation.
Right. And Paul Crickler, I see seconds. Okay. Is there further discussion? I see Andrew Fine here.
Well, I was just going to also ask that we can add my language,
Sure.
Just in regards to making sure that the crosswalk have proper signals and be completely accessible.
Yeah.
For all users.
Yeah, good idea, Craig. always. Okay, let's further discussion here. Let's Andrew Fine, I know, had his hand up.
Hi, Chuck and Craig. Thank you. Just in light of the DOT potentially leaving this meeting soon.
Colleen will hopefully be here, so let's hold off on anything not
Oh.
related to this.
Okay, yeah, it's just on Lexington Avenue, so I can address
I
it
knew
later.
that's what you were going to say.
Yes.
I will be here to address.
Right.
Thanks.
Lexington
Okay,
Avenue.
great.
Right,
Sorry,
we
I thought
don't
you were
wanna-
leaving.
Well, yeah, we can wait for that. And Abraham Salcido, anything you want to?
I was just going to ask if they could, if the presentation was shareable.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be posted online this week.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on Rita's motion as amended by Craig? Okay, if not, why don't we proceed to vote? So any board members that want to vote for it don't have to do anything, but are there any voting against? Or
And let me just read the roll.
not voting for a cause? Why don't you read the roll first?
Yeah, so we have myself, Chuck, Abraham, Alita, Anthony, Cause, John McClement, Judy, Juno, Lori, Paul, Rita, Sahar, and Stephanie. Did I miss any CB8 members?
You have,
I don't believe so.
the board is well represented here tonight. So, okay, so are there any members that want to vote no, abstention, or not voting for cause?
Alita?
Rita?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I came in too late to the presentation to be able to vote.
So, are you going to abstain, or what are you going to do?
I think she just didn't want to be listed as voting.
All right, so we won't
Yeah,
list you.
that's fine.
Anthony?
Same thing. I showed up just as it was wrapping up, so I think that's not quite enough time.
Okay. All right, so we
Thank
have, I think it's unanimous. I don't see anyone, will anybody raise their hand?
No one else.
Okay, good. Okay, great. All right. I think we can go to item number 2, which is the revocable consent application to
Oh, wait.
construct.
Judy,
What?
did you want to change your vote?
You want to do something?
Yeah, I lost my computer and I had to come back to the meeting. What was the resolution?
To approve their plan with Craig added, the pedestrian thing and accessibility. So,
Great. Yes. Thank
okay.
you.
Okay, so we'll record you. Yes, on that. Okay. Is it okay, Will? Can I go now?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean to slow this down at all.
Okay, that's all right. You're doing great stuff. You're getting stuff done here.
Hey, we're on a great pace so far. We need to finish
That
by
means,
8 o'clock.
Don't
That
jinx
would be-
us.
oh, to give us a jinx, this next item, you never know. Revocable consent application to construct, maintain, and use a fenced-in areaway with steps at 38 East 75th Street. Do we have someone here to present the case?
It'll be myself and Braden Novotny here.
Okay, why don't you go ahead? This is Kate Ferris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Let me share the screen.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is our project on 38 East 75th Street. It's on the south side between Madison and Park Avenue. We are currently under construction, and the project is the renovation of an existing townhouse. We are expanding the area way out in front of the townhouse. The current condition right now is that there is a lowered stoop. There are 4 steps that go down to a lowered stoop. And then there's an entrance into the townhouse at that level. And then there is an adjacent stairway that goes down to a cellar level. There's a wrought iron metal fence that goes along an east-west portion of that. And then out front, there is a large existing metal box that contains all of the waste material and recycling. Our proposal is to expand the area in front of the building by approximately 4 feet and bring it into alignment with the property just to the east, which is 40 East 75th Street. And what we would be doing is we would be maintaining that lowered area entranceway. We'd be removing the stair to the cellar, and so everything at that level would be the 4 steps down that in the current condition. We're recentering the entrance to the building. We built a projected bay, and the front door is now centered on the space. So we've created a step in alignment with the front door. And then flanking each side, we are proposing 2 large planters that would have evergreens. And then on the street side of that, there would be a wrought iron fence and limestone pilasters with wrought iron fence gates at the steps. The extension is shown in red. So the portion that is in red is the portion that we are extending out from our existing property line. We are still able to maintain 6 feet of area in front of the building between the entrance gates, pilasters, and the existing tree pit that's out in front of the project right now. If you go next, we have some elevations. So this is a depiction. On the left is the existing conditions, and on the right is the proposed. As you can see on the left, there is an existing 3-foot-high wrought iron fence, and that there is also a large bin that exists out in front of that fence. And what we're proposing is to create a fencing structure that's more in alignment with the proposed facade, which is a traditional Beaux-Arts neoclassical facade. It's the entire facade is limestone, so the material of the fence would also be constructed of limestone. The piers would be limestone. There's a granite base that runs at the bottom of the piers and then along the fencing. And then the fencing material itself is a painted wrought iron fence, and there are some details on the next page. Just one thing before you leave that slide, Kate, if you could go back. Could you show the height of the existing fence?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to note this because the property to the east has about a 3-foot, sorry, the east, yeah, a 3-foot-high wrought iron fence. The property to the west has a 7-foot-high wrought iron fence. And then the current fencing that's at the property is about 3 feet. So we wanted to increase the height of the fencing slightly. And during our landmarks discussion, we were asked to lower what we had originally proposed, which was 5 feet. If you could pan over to the proposed. We wanted to have it work with the facade, but we also wanted to add a level of security for the new owners. So we came across this height because we felt like it was conducive to both of those purposes. The current height is now 4 feet from the concrete to the top of the fence. And it sits as a sort of median between the property to the east and the property to the west. Go to the next slide, please. Mm-hmm. This is a section that's cut through the lowered area showing the facade of the building and how we treat the adjacent transitions to the property. In both cases, that is existing. And so we're basically redressing the lower portion of the wall to come in alignment with the limestone and granite detailing that's on the main facade. And the fencing that's shown on the upper portion is in alignment with the fencing on the front portion of the property. Next. Here is a depiction of the fence from both directions. So the lower portion of the drawing shows the fence from the street. And it's a very traditional, classically designed fence with rondels at the top and a top rail, and then some detailing in the wrought iron and patterning that would allow for the rail to comply with all of the existing life safety requirements, and then also be conducive to the detailing on the main facade of the building. On the top, you can see how the fencing and the steps and the planters work in relationship to the, this is like looking out the front door onto the street. So both of those planters that are sitting to the right and left basically sit in the pocket between the stair pilasters and the adjacent properties, but they're at a level that is on street grade. So the evergreens that are going to be placed there, the idea is that they would fill in the portion under the fence from the top of that planter to an area just under the fence. And I think that is it. Oh, here's a section showing that that condition. So you can see there are 4 risers and the elevation between the existing stoop and the streetscape. And I believe this is the
No, this is the last one.
yeah, this is the planter, basically the planter section without the planter on it.
It'd be a removable planter, yeah.
Yeah.
Just here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wants to say anything on this application?
Yeah, just a reminder to everyone that if you would like to speak about this application, you can go to the reactions icon on your device and press the raise hand button. But as of right now, we only have some board members.
A few board members, right. So I'll take Alita Camp first.
Alita, you're up first.
Thank you. I hope you could hear me. I'm on a Long Island Railroad train. Thank you. I'm very opposed to this because 4 feet is a huge amount of space to take up from the public way. 6 feet, by the contrary, to leave is a very small amount of space with strollers and walkers and wheelchairs and shopping carts and all of that. I've had to step aside from a space to let people coming from the other direction that were walking abreast, 2 or 3 of them, to get by a restaurant shed or a sidewalk cafe. But so I think that this is asking for way too much space, leaving way too little space for the public. And for security, get an alarm system. I just find this really wrong to be asking for an additional 4 feet. I find it outrageous. And the argument that it aligns with the property to one side, I think east or west, I'm sorry, I don't recall and couldn't take notes, is not enough of a reason to get this kind of space. Second of all, I wanted to ask, did I hear correctly? Are you asking this committee to overrule the Landmarks Committee, which I also sit on, because they voted in favor of a lower fence, and now you're asking this committee to approve a higher, taller fence?
No, that's not what I said.
Because it sounded like you were explaining.
No. They had asked, we had proposed a higher fence. They'd asked us to lower it. So we lowered it to this height, which was 4 feet.
But you were asking for 5 feet, I thought.
No, we're asking for.
Okay, then my mistake. Okay,
Yeah, no
that's
problem.
it. And thank you. It was a nice presentation, beautiful work, beautiful building, but it is a taking of public space for private use, which I just object to on principle. And in this case, it's too much. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. Rita Popper, I believe, is next.
Do you have a picture of or a photograph of the street itself of buildings to the right and left?
Yes, let me pull that up.
Zoom in on those.
That's these are the existing images. Yes.
Okay, so
zoom in a little bit more.
this is the higher fence and this is the lower fence. So
Correct.
It's a patchwork quilt street.
Exactly. It was a
Yeah.
continuous street that was like all built by the same architect at the very beginning, but this particular building had been redesigned and renovated in, I believe, the 70s. And is, I believe, Braden, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has no, it's not like landmarked, so to speak.
Well, it has no
So
style, right? Yeah,
it's,
and no
yeah, no
style
style
designation.
designation. Yeah.
Right. So that's the reason. Yeah, it is a patchwork. In terms of the streetscape, I can understand that, it is a constriction, and it, what exists there right now is more space. However, the majority of these townhouses, the original townhouses and the adjacent townhouse, fills in the space. So we're I believe the only townhouse on this side of the street that doesn't have an extension out to that area.
And the landmarks committee approved this.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Anthony Cohn is next. Anthony?
Sorry, couldn't find my mouse. I do recall this project. Thank you, and thank you, Chuck. And it was as always from you guys, a lovely and clear and brief presentation, which is good. I have to agree with Alita, and we'll vote against this on principle. Because there are other ways to solve the problem of getting from the sidewalk down to the front door. But having said that, I also have a couple of questions, and maybe, and one is that okay, the gates open in. Isn't that kind of awkward when you're trying to leave your house?
It is awkward. However, we don't really have a good solution for that beyond pushing the gate in. We obviously don't want to put the gates out onto the street. That would create a burden in terms of blocking pedestrians. So it is a bit odd. It's a condition that does exist. I would point out that the part of the issue that we have in dealing with this particular configuration is the front door on the bay does require some area in front of it in order to, create an entrance, and that is almost 3 feet lower than the sidewalk. So we do have to get pedestrians down to that level.
But I'm sorry. Finish, please.
Well, no, I just wanted to make that point. Now we do have a side service entrance as well on the right portion of that bay that also does require some area to be able to maneuver. So that's the reasoning behind pushing this out. Now I understand that there are different configurations, and we actually looked at several different configurations, and we came across this because it was both, we thought, conducive to the arrangement of the streetscape, but we also thought it worked well with the entrance sequence that our client preferred. So those were sort of some of the variables we had to deal with in terms of mitigating the transfer from the upper portion, the upper height of the street down to the lower entrance level.
Yes, but you created the bay that puts the front door another 3 feet more or less closer to the property line.
Correct.
That is a sort of self-inflicted problem. But anyway, the other question I really have is, why do you have gates at all?
Gates are just for security, strictly. I mean, this was something that was a request from the clients, and we just worked it into the design, basically to allow for some security between the street and the front door.
I think the fence is, and then I'm done. I'm just sort of making a comment that the fence serves as that psychological barrier between the sidewalk, the public way, and the now enlarged private area of your clients. No gates would be less off-putting but no more secure, I think. But that's just
Mhm.
my opinion.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we next go to Julie?
Thank you. And I wanted to thank you guys for this presentation. I appreciated how clear it was. I just cannot see myself voting for this. It takes away public space that realistically we're not going to get back. And if you look at the gap that's between the proposed gate and the planter and the edge of the street, looks already very difficult to get like a stroller or a cart or something through there. And I don't think we should be making it harder. Also, in my personal opinion, I don't think aligning with the streetscape is necessarily a visual strength. It's nice to see some variety on streets like this, and being able to have an indentation where pedestrians can walk freely seems like more of a strength to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Costs?
Yeah, you're coming out 4 feet from the current line. How far out from the building line are you coming out?
It's 4'7" from the building line from the, I assume what you're saying is the property line. Yeah.
The
Or is the
building
question
is-
from the building itself? Yeah.
Well,
So it's,
one of the buildings I see is sticking out further than your current building line. Is that true?
Yes.
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So when sanitation comes in and the bins come into effect for housing, where will you be storing them?
The bins are stored inside the house.
Okay.
Along the service, along that service side, inside the
But
house.
you don't need the space outside.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Correct.
Let's see, okay, Alita?
Hi, the point I wanted to make was in accordance with Anthony's, and to emphasize that pushing out the door has completely created this problem for yourselves, and it's not right to do something like that and then ask the public to give up their space so that the redesign of the building is acceptable. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone want to propose something, a motion one way or the other on this? Anyone want to propose a motion one way or the other on this? I'll jump up. Cost?
Oh, yeah. Good.
You saw Cos's hand first.
Yeah, I move to approve as presented.
Okay, is there a second to that? Rita, is that a second?
Rita,
Yes,
yeah.
a second, okay. Any further discussion? Okay.
All right, I'll read the roll.
Oh, yeah.
It's myself, Chuck, Abraham, Alita, Anthony, Cos, John McClement, Judy, Juno, Lori, Paul, Rita, and Stephanie.
Okay, is everybody there? Do we
And
miss any-
Sahar also. She had raised her hand, so she moved up.
Okay. Okay, so if you're in favor, you don't have to do anything. All those wanting to vote no or abstaining or for any other reason or not voting for cause, please raise your hand. Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
I see.
Sahar?
Yeah, no, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anthony?
Okay. No.
You know?
No.
Abraham?
No.
Lita?
No.
Paul?
No.
Any Reckler?
No.
John McClement?
No.
Okay. Any further? Okay. Where do we stand, Craig?
We had the motion failed.
The motion failed?
Yes. 8 no's, 5 yes. And
Okay. The motion failed. All right. Anyone else? Judy Schneider.
Move to disapprove.
Is there a second to that? Okay, Abraham seconds. Okay. So I don't know if we have any, I don't think we had any further discussion. So why don't we have a vote on this? And if you're voting yes, you don't have to do anything. If you're voting no, or abstaining, or not voting for cause, then raise your hand. Judy, I think, Judy, you have your hand raised, Judy? Do you want to?
No.
No? Okay. Boss?
No.
I'll vote no.
Rita?
Rita? No. Lori? You didn't hear.
Lori, we can't hear you.
He was mouthing no, but go ahead. See if you can.
No.
You're muted. See if you can register. No. Thumbs down.
and I'm also a no.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
So, excuse, I think I misspoke before. I think the first vote was 6 yes, 8 no, and this was the inverse. 8 yes, 6 no.
Okay. Okay, so that passed. Motion to disapprove. That'll be heard at the full board in 2 weeks, I guess. From today.
17th.
Oh, the 17th, sorry. Thank you. Okay. All right. I think we now are going to DOT. Any announcements that you want to make, Colleen? And I know there were some questions about other issues that people wanted to raise to you folks. So I'll let you go first, though, Colleen, if you want to.
Hey, Chuck, I mean, I don't have any announcements, so we can just go into the questions that folks want to raise.
There were some questions, yes.
Well, actually, Colin, do you mind before Andrew even asks this question? I know you had an update on the parking, alternate side parking and street cleaning on Lexington Avenue.
I think that's what Andrew wants to talk about. Yeah. I do, and I can go into that. So DOT and sanitation had a call, and it was decided that we agreed to install street cleaning rule regulations on the west side of Lexington Avenue from 59 to 96th Street. And the hours would be from 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Monday through Thursday. So we're looking to do this as a pilot for 3 months to see how successful it is. If it is, then we're going to move it to the other side of the street. The reason why we want to do this as a pilot, it's because we have to reconfigure the meters and we have to get new signs to install along that corridor to change and reflect the parking hours. So it's going to take us a few weeks to do that. So that's what we've agreed to do. And it's going to be 2 days a week, which will be, again, Monday and Thursday.
Did you say Monday and Thursday or Monday through Thursday? You said,
It's Monday and Thursday. Monday and Thursday. It's going to be 2 days a week.
Okay.
Correct.
I think that there was a question before that was raised in the meeting. Was it, I'm not sure, was it Leah?
And it's going to be a 3 to 6 months. And, you know, we're going to monitor the corridor. We're going to look at how it impacts, you know, the travel lane and the bus lane as well.
Is anyone here? I see some people have their hands raised in but who raised something in the meeting earlier and wants to raise it now. And I know that, Matt, yeah, right, okay, so Maggie Lehman had raised it. Go ahead, Maggie. Why don't you unmute Maggie?
Thank you. It's really just a question I raised at the beginning of the meeting. You can hear me, right, Charles?
Yes.
Yeah. Colleen, I just feel it's profoundly appropriate for a representative from the DOT to address the question I raised about the seemingly evaporating pedestrian safety. I'm only describing what we've been reading on the Upper East Side. Obviously, you multiply that by every area of the city. But you're our guy, Colleen. You're our rep, and you know our area well. And what's brought it to my attention just in the last 12 hours was the pedestrian crash yesterday and the day before. And then when I did a little bit of research to try to speak to this at this evening's meeting, I looked at the Map Crashers website, which gets all its data from the Department of Transportation. And just through the end of 2023, there were 476 crashes involving pedestrians only on the Upper East Side. So I don't know what the data is January through March, but could you speak to this and what the DOT is doing? I thought it was so appropriate to put it in the context of the other representative doing the presentation on the Queensboro Bridge, talking about livable streets. That's what this question is.
Right. So I would have to check with our traffic planning division on that. But just so you know, whenever there are crashes at intersections, DOT gets notified. And if there is, of course, if there is a fatality, we are notified and we are, on the scene because we go there to make sure to look to see if the markings or what are any of the traffic signals are functioning as designed. In terms of the crash data that you look at, we'd have to look at that as well to see what is causing, these crashes, if it's failure to yield to pedestrians or if pedestrians are, crossing against the pedestrian signals. We'd also have to look at the crash reports that are written by NYPD to see, what the problems are and if there's something that we can improve in terms of re-engineering that particular intersection. We'll be more than happy to do that. But first, we have to look at the crash stats and the data to see what's causing the crashes at the locations.
But Colleen, hasn't DOT been trying to redesign a lot of these streetscapes to sort of make it easier for pedestrians to cross and minimize?
Yes, we are. We have been, as you know, we have been shortening the crossing distances. We're also looking to to create 1,000 locations citywide where we're planning to daylight intersections so that pedestrians are more visible to motorists as they're crossing an intersection.
Yeah, I think there's a number of those things in the works. I agree. Okay, Andrew Fine, I believe, has also raised something. So go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. Thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate you being regularly on top of this particular issue. I love the poster behind you, by the way. Bob Marley is like my spiritual leader. So I think we probably have that in common. I'm just wondering why DOT has decided to take this on as like a 50-50 HASI approach. Obviously, prior to the change in regulations 3 or 4 years ago, Lexington Avenue on both sides was cleaned on a regular basis. It worked. And obviously it went away. It was probably a mistake. when the bus lane was instituted, which we approve of. Obviously, we want buses to move swiftly down Lexington Avenue. But why would this be taken on as like a pilot when we know we don't have to experiment with this? We know what worked before, and why didn't we just go back to where we were
Yeah.
with clean streets?
Yeah. Here, I mean, the story, Andrew, is that we do want clean streets and you know, definitely. And that's why we're working with sanitation to make this happen. The reason why we're doing it as a pilot, we're implementing it as a pilot, is because there is a lot of work that goes into play with restructuring and you know, modifying the parking meters, as well as creating all those signs that we're going to have to install on along the corridor. Not to say that this is not going to be successful. We know it's going to be successful, but we just want to monitor it and see how it works out. If it works out really well, as I mentioned, we're going to you know, work with sanitation to make changes on the east side, get the east side of the street clean as well. And we can also work with sanitation to see if they can come out more regularly, to maybe instead of 2 days a week, maybe have, you know, the streets clean maybe 4 days a week. But I can't guarantee you that until we know for sure what sanitation schedule is in that area. But in the interim, we want to try the 2 days a week on the west side of the street, while we're able to reconfigure the meters and get those signs installed, to see how it works. So if, you know, bear with us, we're going to get there. We're going to, you know, get the streets clean with sanitation.
I really appreciate that. How would this like contrast to say like Third Avenue and Second Avenue? Don't they have like daily regulations to have the streets clean, and aren't they clean daily? And why would Lex be different?
So Lex is not different. It depends on sanitation, on their schedule, and you know, when they have their crew in that area. I don't know for sure what the regs are on Third Avenue. I can't tell you off my head what it is, but that's an interesting question you raised. And I think once we're able to, you know, analyze this and see how well it works out, we can probably push with sanitation to get it 4 days a week.
Well, Craig, I hope you're okay. Even though this is like kind of belabored and taking a while, I just want to thank everybody here, CB8 and the DOT, for addressing this. It may not be at the pace that I would prefer, but I really look forward to having Lexington Avenue clean again, and I hope that after 3 to 6 months, it doesn't take another like 3 to 6 years to get the other side of the street clean. And I hope you guys are really on it.
We'll make sure it's expedited, so it's not going to take that long.
Great, appreciate it.
You're welcome, Andrew.
Okay, let's go to Lo Vanderbilt. Lo? Go ahead, Lo.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yeah. My name is Lo Vandervalk. I'm representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. We've had a request by one of our members, a store owner at the southeast corner of 96th Street and Madison Avenue. That's a very busy corner. There's a bus stop there. He noted that Amazon had been using that area as one of their truck stop to unload goods and transfer them to carts to distribute to the buildings nearby. So is there any way that we can prevent such things from happening? Because this is obviously inappropriate. So that's my question.
I know that DOT, Lo, is trying to get some areas where these kinds of trucks can be parked, and maybe talk about them to see whether can relieve some of this, so they're just not, you know, out there the way they are now. And there may be something. Why don't you talk about it a little bit, Colin?
So we have been working very closely with Amazon on their delivery operations, and you know, unfortunately, you can, have a plan and let them know that, it's not permissible for them to obstruct, a bus lane, when they're making their deliveries. But a lot of these issues boils down to enforcement. And the complaints that we get is the Amazon drivers, they would put their boxes, on the sidewalk, preventing pedestrians from, using, the space or the pedestrian clearance. And again, we continue to have conversations with Amazon about this. I know our Office of Freight and Mobility is working closely with them to identify locations that they can use. So that's something that's in the work. But again, if what's the location? We can share that with them.
90 southwest. Did he say southwest 96th to Madison?
He said southeast.
Southeast.
Okay. All right. Great. We'll flag that to Amazon.
Okay. Thanks, Love. Rita Popper.
Hi,
Yeah.
Colleen. Thanks for everything. I just had, in the last 2 weeks, 3 tenants have asked me for printed bus maps of Manhattan. I went online, and of course I get a beautiful map in color, but are there printed maps, and how can I get them?
Hey, so Rita, you would have to get that from the MTA. You'd have to get that on their website.
Transportation.
Yeah, MTA.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Pause.
Yeah, my usual question on dining sheds, Colleen. When are sheds, or when are the cafes or restaurants supposed to be in compliance? Because last night at Street Life, I heard August, November, and April of 25.
It's August.
So what is it?
It's by August 3rd. They have to be in compliance.
Whether they've applied or not?
Yes. And if they have not met that deadline and applied by August 3rd, they have until November to remove their structures.
So
but they
sorry.
Go ahead, you were saying, Kaz?
So April of next year is definitely not true.
That's true. That's not true.
Okay. During the COVID area, you had an online site that I could look at an address or an application, a restaurant name or something, and see whether they applied for sidewalk or street. Are you going to have something like this for the new dining out? Or
we are. We are, and the community board will be able to access that. Yes.
But what about the public?
The public, I'm not aware if the public is going to be able to access that, but I know the community board will be able to get that information beforehand when applicants will come to the boards.
Okay.
Always get
now. Sorry, Chuck.
So you can always get it through the board. If we
yeah, but I mean, every time the board's going to be inundated with phone calls to, find out certain things. So during the COVID, there was an open online. I could go by restaurant, by an address, or by anything and have a look, or by the borough and have a look. Maybe that could be something that DOT could also put out.
I agree.
Yeah, let me confirm that. I'm sure there might be a portal where the public can go and retrieve that information.
Okay. Now, illegal sidewalk structures that are known to be illegal, and the one I'm thinking of, northwest corner of 3rd and 79th, it's been illegal for the past 5 or 6 years. There's a bus stop there. The walkway is 3 feet. It is still there after 6 years of complaints. So when is that coming down?
They will, under the new program and the guidelines, that location, the owner, they're going to have to remove their structure. They have, again, up until August 3rd to apply. And if they have not applied under the new program, they have, again, up until November to remove the structure.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome, Kaz.
Paul, quickly.
Thank you, Chuck. Colleen, I wanted to talk to you about Summer Streets. Summer Streets had become so incredibly successful. I think it was 500,000 people participated last year. I think it's 3 Saturdays in August. I think it's 7 o'clock till 1 o'clock. I think it's fantastic. It's gone to the other boroughs. And we've extended our Summer Streets in Manhattan all the way up to Harlem. I'd love to see much more of it, though. So I'm curious what DOT thinking is. To give you my dream wish list would be 7 a.m. till 5 p.m., not 1 o'clock. A lot of people can't benefit from this. I'd love it every Sunday in the whole of July and August, for starters. That's my bidding start.
I'll take that back to the Commissioner cause. And that you mentioned Summer Streets. I neglected to mention Car Free Earth Day, which is what we're going to be having on Saturday, April 20th in all 5 boroughs. So we're working on a flyer that we'll share with the community board. But I will take it back about expanding the hours for Summer Streets.
Thanks, Colleen.
I assume any such request like that would take a while and to.
But you know what?
How much advanced planning is there in Summer Streets? I guess that was my question.
You know, Craig, if it happens, we have to give Paul credit for it because he's the one who's asked for it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and in terms of Earth Day, are there any streets within our community district that are planned to participate in that?
I'll let you know. I'll find out. I'll share that information with Will and
All right.
with both of you.
And while I'm speaking, 2 things quickly. One, I know you sent over some information regarding the Lexington Avenue bus lanes, and that's great. And I just want to know if you had any sense of when DOT would be able to come and actually formally present it to the committee.
Okay, so I spoke with the members, my colleagues, and we do not feel that it's necessary to come to the community board to give a presentation because a lot of the information that we shared in the letter and the attachments pretty much is the information that we would present if we were to come to the board. So we feel that the letter that we sent is sufficient, and given the fact that the project has been implemented for a few years, we see that it has been successful or that it is successful. So therefore, we don't need to come to present to the community board.
Well, I think I don't agree with that, and I'm going to go to I think we want you to come because we were told it was going to be presented, and
okay,
we need a chance to hear it, and they may have concerns and stuff like that. It's not enough just to give us, a summary of what happened because this has been a controversial issue in our committee and the board. So I think we ought to have a presentation if we have to.
Okay, I'll take that back.
Take that back to Ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Chuck.
Okay.
And I'm blanking on the second thing I was going to ask. So I know Andrew has his hand up, so I'll let him speak, and then maybe I'll remember.
No, you can. Why don't you go while you're at it?
No, I'm blanking on what the second. Yeah, I forgot.
I'll buy you a little time here, Craig. I just want to ask regarding the e-cargo baby box trucks that the DOT has kind of unilaterally approved to drive around the city. These box trucks. We had a public hearing last year, semi-public. It was open to the public, but when I asked for a copy of the meeting, which involved the public, and the public was, let's just say it was wildly unpopular with the public, and it was like roundly denounced by the public. Yet the DOT on their own decided that it was okay to approve 4-wheeled bicycles, which makes no sense whatsoever, that would be 4 feet wide and originally 10 feet long. But the DOT in its wisdom decided that even though that was wildly unpopular, they would now be 16 feet long. In the original proposal, they would be allowed to ride on the sidewalks even in the process of delivering, which is a pretty wide definition. I'm just wondering, I know that DOT granted themselves the authority to approve and authorize these four-wheeled vehicles and redefine the definition of bicycle to include four-wheeled, basically baby UPS trucks. Can you just explain the rationale behind that? Because I know that the DOT argues that they're human powered, but these are literally 4-foot by 16-foot vehicles with four wheels that are not bicycles that weigh in excess of 1,000 pounds, because you have say a driver that's 200 pounds, you have a vehicle that's 500 pounds. It can carry 600, 700, 800 pounds worth of cargo. So this is a really dangerous vehicle that would be allowed to ride in the bike lanes. And I know that the rationale was that these are human powered because it takes a foot or a leg to push the pedal to activate the motor. And I would just argue, I have a four-wheeled vehicle that's also electric, where I have to use my foot to press the accelerator. And why is that not a human powered vehicle? I mean, I'm really lost on this, and I think this is a real danger to pedestrians. It's a danger to bicyclists, and I think I get what the end game is, which would be like, oh, we're putting these trucks in bike lanes. Now we need bigger and bigger bike lanes. Can you just explain
So Andrew,
how this is human powered
just
and
to give you a little,
authorized not by the DOT or the DMV, but the DOT?
just to give you a little background and timeline about the e-cargo vans that are authorized to operate in New York City streets. So the pilot of the program and operation began in December of 2019. DOT published draft rules in August of 2023 and initiated a start of 30-day public comment period. I'm told that DOT held a public hearing in September of 2023 and that we reviewed all the feedback received to inform the final rules. Now, the cargo bikes replace larger vehicles like vans and trucks for last mile deliveries and present a safer, more efficient and sustainable alternative mode. Now, there is a link on DOT's website, which I'm going to share with Will, and I'll share that with you as well and others, with a formal press release. And that link, whatever comments and concerns you have, you can, enter, you can, put that in there, and we will be able to respond to you. In terms of the cargo bikes being dangerous, I don't know of any issues that has come forth where there have been incidents with the cargo bikes. I'm not aware of that, but I know that we will be tracking and monitoring this program to see again how successful it is. So yeah.
The thing that concerns me about this is that the DOT engaged the public, and I was part of that hearing. And part of that hearing, there were, of the first speakers, 9 of them were cargo e-bike companies, which the DOT considers stakeholders, not the public, but people that are trying to sell these vehicles. And half of them were from Europe, not related to, they're not stakeholders in New York City. And I literally had to threaten a Freedom of Information action to get a copy of this meeting, because the public resoundingly rejected the idea of these vehicles. And the vehicles that DOT has now ultimately authorized are far larger by at least 60%, because they're 60% longer. They are 33% wider. They're half a foot taller. And the public said no. And this reminds me of, I'm sure you guys on the community board remember like Truck It? You remember Truck It? You remember when the DOT came to us and said, "Oh, we love your opinion and your feedback on let's have rental trucks and cars taking up spaces for $500 for 2 spaces." Remember that, Craig? Chuck, remember that?
Yeah. Well, we
And
never
then at
did it on cargo bikes.
I remember, didn't agree on
right.
it.
Yeah,
And at the
that's
end of the
definitely true.
day, at the end of the meeting, really, the DOT just came and said, "Oh, well, truck it. We already did it." You know what I mean? And I'll say truck it because that was the name of the company and not like what their real attitude was, which might have started with an F. But again, I feel like the DOT has asserted authority that they don't have. And they've been saying that they're engaging the public. They are engaging the public, but they're completely ignoring it. And it is so aggravating. And I don't think anybody in their right minds, if you walked around the streets of the Upper East Side and said, would you like 16 by 4 over a half a ton of 4-wheeled e-bike rolling down the streets, everybody would say, heck no. So I just like you to take it back to Ed and Udonis, who seem to just operate completely free of the voters and the public, and just say, this should not happen. You should listen to the public. And if you go back to September 2023, just review the tape. Everybody hated it, but the DOT is doing it anyway. I really question which master they're serving, because Amazon would probably be happy about it. The delivery apps might be happy about it, but 90% of New York would not be happy about it.
I'm not sure.
Thank you for listening.
Go ahead, Colleen. Why don't you respond to him? If you want to.
I will definitely share the link with the community boards, and I will share that with you, Andrew, so you can put your comments there. And just so you know, the cargo bikes and the trailer combination, it increased from 10 feet to 16 feet. That's correct. And the maximum height increased from 78 inches to 84 inches. So all of that is in the press release.
No, my understanding, Colleen, was that this was to take the place of trucks, larger trucks that they've been using.
That is correct. That's correct, Chuck. That's correct.
And my understanding was that when the public hearings were held, there was a lot of opposition, absolutely, but the opposition from some was just in opposition to it based on concerns about the negative impacts of cargo bikes. And then there were those who thought that the proposed rules and designs of bikes that would be permissible weren't aggressive enough and weren't going to actually make a difference. And my understanding is that the new cargo bike rules that were announced quelled the concerns, at least for those who were supportive of cargo bikes.
That's correct. The new rules are designed to make deliveries safer and more sustainable by reducing the number of large delivery trucks in New York City streets. That's exactly what it is.
Okay, well, we're not going to have a further back and forth. I think we've laid out this argument. Let's see.
I remembered what my other question was, and it was just a quick one. Going back to Dining at NYC, Colleen, are there going to be presentations made to community boards in a public capacity regarding the rules, or was that really done via the meetings that were just held recently?
It was done by the meetings that we've held, the webinars.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were also promised a presentation too, Craig. That's it. Yeah.
That's what I thought. That's why I was asking.
That's yeah, I know. But the rules are out there. It's true. Rita Hopper.
Excellent meeting. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, make a motion to adjourn.
Before you go, Rita, I remembered I did have another question, and I promised we can move on to that. And this is quick, and this And this is just so I could put it out in the public. Too bad Alita had to leave the meeting because I know she would be interested. Colleen knows I sent an email following up on 1045 Madison Avenue, the Benson. And the fact that they still have illegal planters in front of the building. So I just wanted to flag that. I know Colleen said that DOT would send out inspectors.
Yeah, we will. And I know we issued an encroachment notice to the building. So we're following up on that encroachment notice.
Great, thank you. I'm done.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Rita has made a motion to adjourn. Is there any reason to continue at this point? Okay, well, everybody, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll present things to the board on the 17th. You're adjourned.
All right, thank you, everyone.